Hello, everyone, and welcome to week two. My name is Dr. Natalie Spencer-Gwyn, and I am your instructor for this course. I wanted to hop on just to introduce to you this week, as far as some of the major concepts that we're going to talk about for week two, and also just to welcome you again. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed last week's discussion as we hopped into the course and we talked a little bit more about theories. I found everyone's discussion post to be very engaging, and you really made some great connections with your peers. Also, I really enjoyed getting to know everyone in the get to know you or meet and greet professor or the professor section of the course. Thank you so much for sharing so much about you and how you really prepare for your courses and how committed you are to helping others, helping children, helping families. And that's really great to hear. For this week, we are actually going to do a deep dive into some of the specific lifespan stages. And we're going to start with week two discussion of the infant and preschool mental health. So this is actually one of my favorite topics because I have a background in working with children, adolescents, infants, and babies. So for this week, I'm just gonna just do a quick little overview as far as what is expected. So for this week, you're going to focus on understanding the impact of early human development as people grow. So think back to those theories that you identified and how did they really communicate to you or communicate their theoretical perspective when it comes to early human development. So, just to remind you, as you progress through these learning activities, you'll see how personality, social, and emotional skills, attachment, and belief systems are all built during the first 5 years of life. That's why those first 5 years of life, they are so important. That's why we make sure children are getting those doctor's appointments, they're getting the proper nutrition, that they live in safe environments, and that they are really well taken care of. Because if those things don't occur in those first 5 years, and then there could later be some problems or some challenges later in life. For this week, we also want you to consider the significance in typical and atypical development throughout infancy and preschool. So once again, the focus this week is on infancy and preschool. You will then move and you will see how family life develops more acutely as children are added to a family unit. So you're going to understand a little bit more about attachment theory. There's actually a great attachment theory video for you to watch during this week. And what I really want you to do is to ask yourself how these developments, how children develop, how individuals think and behave and feel, and how they manifest themselves from the first 5 years of life into adult relationships, decisions, and behaviors. So, in other words, how does the first 5 years of an infant and preschooler's life impact their overall development throughout the rest of their life? Our discussion for this week will carry on with that same question. So you're just going to make sure that you post 3 responses over 2 separate days for full participation. It seems like most of you all did that very well last week. But what is due on Thursday is for you to review the following topics, and this is just me reviewing the discussion posts that we have here for the prompt. So you're going to go back and you're going to review the topics from week one and week two. So go back and review those first 3 chapters in our book. And you're going to select 2 topics to focus on. Now, last week, I started to get you thinking a little bit about cultural implications. So culture is actually one of the 2 topics you can focus on if you want to expand on that. But then there's also a topic of genetics, maternal nutrition, environment, and gender. And what you're going to do is you're going to select 2 of those topics. You're going to respond in a minimum of 175 words, as always, and answer the questions here. What is the impact of each factor you chose on infant and preschool development, function, and behavior? You're going to also think about how those factors influence a preschooler infant's mental health. And then you're going to think about your role as a future counselor and how it pertains to these topics. How might learning this content support your professional counseling and career goals? Because it's very important. Some people like to focus on early development and really go back and help people understand their early childhood experiences to help them understand why they are behaving or why their behaviors and decisions are what they are as an adult. Some people can't really remember all of those things, But if they can describe to you, like, yes, we lived in a transient household, or, my mother might have abused substances during her maternal health, maternal time when I was in the womb. So that can all have a huge impact on someone's eventual upbringing and their care. So that would be our discussion post. For our assignment for this week is a very fun assignment. You're actually going to design a playroom. And you're going to use a PowerPoint template that's provided for you to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to imagine that you are employed in an early childhood counseling facility, and the director of facility has asked you to submit ideas for a new office or playroom, excuse me. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the template to create a 75 to 100 word response to each prompt in the template. And then you also are going to include relevant images to support your playroom design. We want to make sure that images, they are encouraged, but they're not required. So images could be something that you find online. Images could be something that you create yourself if you just want to just draw it using your cursor. Um, and then you're also going to include speaker notes in your presentation. If you're unfamiliar with speaker notes, they're just the bottom little section that you can go in and you can add notes to describe each section of the PowerPoint that you're creating, and go in and answer those questions. So you'll put your 75 to 100 word responses to the prompt in the speaker notes, and then you will actually do the actual design in the PowerPoint presentation. So just follow the PowerPoint template. If you have any questions about anything, just please let me know. And then finally, you're just going to make sure that you review the learning activities. As I said, there's also some really great attachment videos for you to review. And then we're going to make sure that you are preparing yourself for the next week lessons. So for this week, it's important that you review chapters 4, 5, and 6 in our textbook. And that can help you understand a little bit more about infancy and preschool development and how that can have an impact on an adult's life. Once again, I am just excited about welcoming you to this term. I'm looking forward to our robust discussion that we're going to have this week. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me via office hours. And I posted my office hours information in the announcement. So I look forward to seeing everyone online. Have a great week, everybody, and welcome again. This is Dr. Gwyn signing off. Bye bye.